Emily. Okay. So the second Saturday of every month, we as a congregation fund and provide a meal cooked at Tourist Shelter. And last night we had it, and we actually had a power outage, but we still managed to do it thanks to a gas oven and stove. And but it's really fun. It's very relaxing. You don't need to know how to cook. There's always garlic bread to butter. And I was the only actual member of this congregation who was there. So I would love to have some more people join. Anytime you want, you can come try it out one week, do it from time to time. You're not obligated for a full commitment. We always have 6 or 7 people.
Good morning, everybody. I'm David. We are having a public hearing Tuesday about our use permit. Some of you have heard me talk about that before, and you are invited to offer an email in support or come and to the Zoom meeting and offer your support there. Come talk to me or to Bob if you would like to do that. That would be great. And it's at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, and the link was sent by email. So if you got that email, check that out.
Thanks, Dave.
Monca is expanding its operations. They're seeking new funding, and they're calling for volunteers. So if anybody's interested in volunteering at Monca, I have cards here for the information on what to do.
Can you see what Monca is?
Oh yeah, Museum of Northern California Art. It's across from the high school down on the Esplanade.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to just remind everybody about Pancakes for Chat that are next Sunday, and it used to be Pancakes for Peace, but all the dear souls who have been doing Pancakes for Peace now, or the Peace Center has morphed into chat. And so Pancakes for Chat, they'll have a silent auction and pancakes, and they have an Easter egg hunt. So tell all your friends to go. Where? At the Card Center. And at what time? 10? Yeah, it starts pretty early. I forgot. I used to work.
Well, 10 o'clock on next Sunday, Easter?
Yeah. It's after.
Okay, 8, good. So you can have your pancake breakfast and then come to church.
And go after church, too.
Or you could go after church.
Thank you, Megan. My announcement this morning is for Dinners for 8, which we are starting to have again after our 2 years or maybe 3 years in the wilderness. And so this is going to be on the 23rd of April, which is a Saturday evening. We have hosts who have already set a step forward to host, and that means that we have tables available for other people to be the guests. And the way that works is that the host decides what the main menu will be, and then invites the other people to come to their house on Saturday night, the 23rd, and they will be assigned to bring the salad or the bread or something else. It's a lot of fun around the table. So I actually have my clipboard this time and a pen, and so all I need is your names and your contact information. Thank you.
Now I have Call to Worship by Reverend Bonnie.
Good morning. It's a very great pleasure to be here with you this morning. Let us begin this morning with the words of Anita Barber Robertson. Welcome to a day of hope and promise, to a place of peace and comfort, to a journey toward truth and justice, and to a community of love and courage that will help us along the way. Now let us join together in singing our opening hymn, which is number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Sing all 5 verses.
Named Yavo, who had a magic mirror with 2 sides. One side was like any normal mirror. When people looked into it, they saw themselves as they were. The other side was quite different. It had the power to distort what was real and true. If someone was good and beautiful, and most people are, he or she looked evil and ugly in the mirror. Yavo would invite a person to look into the normal side of the mirror. Then he would say, "Let me have you look in the other side of the mirror, for it will give you a much better view." When he turned the mirror to the magic side, their beauty disappeared, and each and every person looked ugly as a troll. Ah! People became afraid because they thought the mirror was reflecting what they looked like on the inside. Yavo traveled from village to village and had every villager look into both mirrors. Eventually, There was not a single village or a single villager who had not seen a distorted view of himself or herself, or a distorted view of the world. Then something truly terrible happened. Yavo was thinking of all the people he had look in the mirror. First he smiled, then he giggled. This led to a chuckle, and so it went until he began roaring with laughter. That's when he dropped the mirror, and it broke into a million splinters, each the size of a grain of sand. The wind began to blow, like today, and it blew splinters throughout the land. When a splinter lodged in a person's eye, everything they looked at appeared evil and ugly. People stopped trusting. They stopped loving. Everything seemed dark and cold, as if their hearts had become frozen. A splinter got in Mikkel's eye. He was just 12 years old. His best friend Gerda, who was also 12, slept through the windstorm, and her eyes were not touched by the splinters. The splinter changed Mikkel, and this worried Gerda. They had been best friends since they were 5, and Gerda loved Mikkel more than she loved anything or anyone. When Mikkel looked at Gerda, he saw a friend who was now ugly and disfigured. When Gerda looked at Mikkel, she saw her good friend, who now seemed so afraid and suspicious. Neither Mikkel nor Gerda knew what had happened, but everything was worse. Gerda confronted Mikkel, asking, "What is wrong?" "Wrong," said Mikkel. "You are what is wrong. Why did you become so evil and ugly?" Gerda was shocked. "I haven't changed," she said. Mikkel sneered. "You are just trying to fool me." "No," Gerda said, "I wouldn't fool you. I love you." Then she said, "Look into my eyes and see what is reflected there, for that is who I truly am." Mikkel looked into her eyes and saw beauty. He was so shocked that he began weeping. His tears washed away the splinter, and the world magically changed in front of his eyes. Everywhere he looked, he saw beauty. As others were invited to look into the eyes of those who loved them, more splinters were washed away. That, unfortunately, has not yet happened to everyone. Still, the best mirrors are the eyes of those who love us. Normally, if we have children who would like to go to religious education and we have Miranda here to accompany them, please feel free to follow her. And of course, children may stay if they care to as well. It's up to them. This is the time in our service when we share personal joys and sorrows that may have occurred the previous week, and we share our joy and divide our sorrow by our sharing. So if you have anything you'd like to share, please come up. Please remember, I'm going to be holding the mic because we're still doing semi-COVID precautions here.
I had a wonderful day yesterday. I don't know, there's a few of you that remember Joan Lawrence, that used to be a real important part of our congregation, and she spends part of her time in Michigan and part of her time here, and hopefully she will come with us here next Sunday. Please extend your love to her so that she will continue coming. She'll be gone for 6 months, but if I don't get her next Sunday, watch out in the spring. We went up to Alomar. It was great fun.
I'll put a stone in for you. Oh, yeah, I know that thing could trip you.
That's one concern. The other is a concern for Bob Van Fleet, who about a little bit more than a week ago now thought he had allergies. He had difficulty breathing and so forth, couldn't be helped. Ended up going to the hospital, where over a course of days it was discovered that he had a small malfunctioning valve in his heart. And it was supposed to have been taken care of fairly easily just a few days ago. Unfortunately, a test showed that it was much more serious than he had thought, that we all had thought, And so he went home, but next Friday, unless things change, a specialist in fixing hearts of this kind will perform open heart surgery on Bob, and so I'd like us all to keep him in our thoughts.
For Bob, who wants us to know that we should be thinking of him.
Hello. So y'all probably remember when I had the big leg brace, and I wanted to let y'all know that my leg is healed and my foot is healed, and I'm in physical therapy. So I want to thank for the support. Also, I haven't been around. I think most of you know my husband had neurosurgery. He had a tumor on his pituitary gland, and he was losing his sight, which in my family would make him part of the club of all the blind people, but we need him to drive. So when they took it out, his sight came back. It's all back. So I wanted to thank everyone for all the concern. And then he asked me to ask all of you to go see your optometrist and ophthalmologist and have them scan your optic nerve to make sure you don't have one too. So please do that. Because it was, it would have become a much bigger deal if he hadn't caught it as early as he did. And his signaled by his vision changing, but a lot of people don't even get signals until it's really a lot further along. So, but anyway, thanks for all your thoughts. Thank you.
I know.
My joy is for Bob Van Fleet that they found the valve problem. I had a valve problem with my heart 13 years ago, and they're really good at taking care of it now. So it's a joy that that can maybe be done for him.
So I have a joy, and that's after nearly 40 years of marriage to this chaotic dude. He continues to surprise me, especially this weekend. I don't know if any of you noticed the back, that he brought over his weed eater on steroids and took care of the weeds and then came back yesterday morning to finish up. So, yeah, Bob said I should share that, and I said, you know, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins, but he always steps up if I ask him, so.
Oh, thanks to your husband. I'm going to put a stone in for my friend Jan in New Mexico, who's in the hospital right now. And I'll put a few stones in for the remaining joys and concerns that lives in our hearts.
As we hold these joys and sorrows in our heart, I'd like to offer you this morning the words of Mark Bellatini, and we'll be followed by a few moments of silence. Let's set it all down, you and me. The disappointments, little and large, the frustrations. Let's open our fists and drop them. The useless waiting, the obsession with what we cannot have, the focus on foolish things, the pinwheeling worry which wears us out, the fretting. Let's throw them down. The comparisons of ourselves with others, the competition, as if domination was the best name we could give to God. The cynical assumptions, the unspoken shelved anger, let's toss them. The inarticulate suspicions, the self-doubt, the preemptive self-dumping, the numbing bouts of self-pity. Let's sink them all like stones in the pool of this gift of silence. Let's drop them like hot rocks into that cool silence. And when they're gone, let's lay back gently and float float on the calm surface of the silence.
Find the right paper here. Oh, how interesting. Usually there's more people on this side, and today we're listing to this side. I just noticed that. 11 years ago, at the age of 19, my older son Galen left for Virginia to seek his fortune. He went in the company of his best friend, whose family is from Virginia. Galen lived with his friend's family for most of the first 6 years he lived there, and during that time, he became a member of their family, and he remains so today. The Rawls family considers Galen a son and a brother, and they are as devoted to him as he is to them. Their lives are intertwined. So much so that one of his bonus sisters introduced him to the woman who is now his fiancée. I won't deny that it sometimes makes my heart ache to have my son live so far away, clear across the country. But it does my motherly heart good to know that he lives among people he loves and who love him. He has truly found a place where he belongs. 25 years ago, I walked through the doors of this church, UUFC, with my 2- and 6-year-old sons in tow, seeking my fortune. I was returning to my hometown after 23 years away, and while I had family here, I needed a church home for myself and my children. I had attended the UU Church of Stanislaus County for a couple of years, and so it was natural to come here. And here I have remained. Within a year or so, I was asked to be on the board, and shortly thereafter I was if I might be willing to be the treasurer for the fellowship, and I perhaps rather rashly said yes to both. My boys attended church and religious education regularly until, as teenagers are wont to do, they fell away from coming to church. And here I have remained. I am here because I want to be among people of faith, whose religious journey is as crucial to their lives as mine is to me. I want to be among people whose deep religious beliefs are the springboard from which they live their lives. I'm here because I have fallen in love with all of you, and I know that you love me too. I am here because you have become my friends and chosen family. Our lives are intertwined. I am in the church where I belong, and here I will remain.
Our reading this morning is by Teresa Novak. It's a poem called Saved. Come into this place. There are healing waters here, and hands with soothing balm to ease your troubled days. Bring your wounds and aching hearts, your scars too numb to feel, your questions and complaints are all welcome here. Rest a while. Let the warmth of this community surround you, hold you, heal you. When you feel stronger, just a bit, notice those that need you too. They are here. They are everywhere. Weep with them, smile with them, work with them, laugh along the way, pass the cup, drink the holy fire, take it with you into the world. We are saved, and we save each other again, again, and yet again. And now for something completely different. My message this morning will begin with a quick story, which was shared by a minister at an interfaith event. I'm walking across a bridge one day, he says, and I see a man standing on the edge about to jump off. So I shout, "Don't stop." "Why not?" he replied. "What is there to live for?" So I ask, "Well, are you religious or atheist?" He said, "I'm religious." Relieved, I said, "Me too." And I went on asking, "Are you a Christian or something else?" He said, "I'm a Christian." And I said, "Well, me too." I asked, "Are you Catholic or Protestant?" He said, "Protestant." And so now I'm getting really excited thinking I can reach this man. So I say, "Great, me too. Are you Methodist or Baptist?" And he says, "Baptist." I was amazed and I said, "Wow, me too. Are you Baptist Church of God or Baptist Church of the Lord?" He said, "Baptist Church of God." "Me too. Are you Original Baptist Church of God or are you Reformed Baptist Church of God?" He said, "Reformed Baptist Church of God." And I yelled, "Die, you heretic," and pushed him off the bridge. So this story was a lot funnier to me before we became a nation so rigidly divided by politics, when the idea of such extreme tribalism seemed ridiculous. And of course, it's less funny today, but it still makes a good point, which is that as humans, we tend to seek out groups or tribes, and we can become fiercely, even irrationally, loyal to them. And I know this because I'm a Giants fan. I think it's natural to be attracted to groups with whom we share identities, values, or experiences. Groups inspire a comforting sense of belonging, whether it's to an extended family or a group of friends or a club or a faith community like this one. When we ask why people become members of organizations, the answer we get from scientists is that because our fitness as a species was better in groups, we evolved living together. You could say that we're genetically programmed to thrive together. Neurologically, we're actually hardwired to seek out each other's companies. Studies show that as babies, we need to be touched to grow properly. And as we grow, we learn skills by watching each other. We rely on each other to learn how to be humans. Beyond that need, we clearly enjoy socializing in groups, and that makes us feel safe and loved, identified, and known. At the heart of groups and group memberships are shared agreements. These agreements can be very simple or very complicated. I have one group of friends who agree to have dinner together once a month. I belong to another group of folks who agree to read a book each month and then meet to discuss it. Giants fans agree that our team is better than the Dodgers. Actually, we agree that any team is better than the Dodgers. My apologies to Dodgers fans. The agreements we make within spiritually oriented groups fall into the more complicated category. When I first sought out a religious organization, I wasn't particularly looking for agreements. I was hoping to fulfill a deep need to connect with something larger than myself. I also wanted to cultivate relationships with other people who shared my values. And lots of folks I've talked to come to Unitarian Universalist churches for those same reasons. A report published by the Unitarian Universalist Association in 2001 goes a step further, stating that we become members of congregations because we long for growth and transformation. We have all experienced losses and disappointments, pain and grief. We have all been broken by life and need healing. The closest that contemporary Unitarian Universalists may come to the concept of salvation is to offer opportunities for growth and transformation, for becoming more whole. I was lucky enough to stumble across a Unitarian Universalist congregation back when I was searching for a church where I felt at home right away. Before too long, I inquired about joining, and it seemed pretty easy. I needed to have a conversation with the minister who talked to me about the principles and sources. I needed to make a financial contribution of record. I agreed to participate in a new membership ceremony one Sunday, during which I signed the special membership book, and bingo, I was a member. Except it wasn't that simple, really. It seems that I didn't really fully comprehend the significance of the ceremony. What I didn't get at the time is that Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith. So when I joined, I entered into a covenant with the entire congregation. The words were probably something like this: I pledge to participate in and support the ministries of this church. I covenant to remain true to the spirit of love that flows through this congregation and guides us all. And there was probably something in there about our principles and sources. Obviously, I have no memory or record of what I said. Looking back now, I think I should have paid more attention, because at the time I clearly didn't understand how a covenant works. The concept of a covenant is ancient and generally defined to be a formal and serious agreement or promise, freely made between two equal but separate parties to be true to each other and to share a commitment to the common good. So let's think about that a little bit. The first thing is, a covenant is something we enter into voluntarily with others. So it's not a solitary vow. Of the 7 principles we covenant to affirm and promote, really only one can be practiced solo. Technically, a free and responsible search for meaning could be a solitary activity, but that clearly wasn't what I was looking for. I could have done that without a church. The rest of the principles can only be practiced within a community. That wholeness and healing I mentioned earlier, you just can't get it to go. Second, a covenant is not a casual thing. It's serious. It's a promise we make to each other. Our fellow members are there to support us, but also to hold us accountable. That's part of the deal. Without that accountability, we can just admire those principles and purposes from afar. I mean, they sound great, right? But knowing they exist, admiring them, or even reciting them from memory does not fulfill our covenant. We are responsible for helping each other in our efforts to live into them. Lastly, a covenant includes a mutual agreement to some greater good. The agreement we make with each other includes work that goes beyond the building's walls. So a covenant is kind of like a 3-way promise that includes me, you, and the whole world out there. Now, in my lifetime, I have entered into many, many agreements, often with the hope that they would have a transformative effect on me, and very few have. The first agreement I remember being really excited about was the one I made when I was joining the Girl Scouts around age 10. I really looked forward to taking the Girl Scout pledge, thinking how much it would change my life. If you are or were a Girl Scout, This will sound familiar. It goes like this. On my honor, I will try to serve God or suitable substitute and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law. The Girl Scout law. Okay, that goes like this. I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout. So that's pretty good. But notice it's a vow. It's a vow. It concerns my behavior only. So you may not be surprised to learn that upon taking this vow, I was not instantly transformed into a perfect Girl Scout. It's not that I didn't take my vow seriously. I did. But there was something missing. My first problem was that I was unable to come up with a suitable substitute for God on my own at age 10. I also got tired of being friendly, helpful, considerate, and caring to girls who didn't seem interested in returning my efforts. I mean, yes, they treated me like a sister, but that can be a very low bar. In addition, at that age, I had no idea what respecting myself would look like in a patriarchy, and neither could I respect the authority, which couldn't be held accountable in any way. I left the Girl Scouts within a year or two, very disappointed. I had made a vow, a promise, but there was no we in it. Now, before I go on, I just have to say that for many, many girls and women, joining the Girl Scouts is a transformative, empowering, and community building experience. I even co-led my own daughter's small scouting group, but as a young person, it just didn't work for me. I never felt part of a larger group, and consequently, I just walked away. Happily, my decision to join the Unitarian Universalists worked out much better, but the act of joining a Unitarian Universalist church did not instantly transform me either. It took time. The difference in my experience was in the nature of the agreement I entered into there. I spent my first year at the Mount Diablo Church in blissful gratitude, reveling in the acceptance I found there and not noticing really much else. Then one day, I was asked to teach religious education, like it was somehow my responsibility. I mean, I came to church to get a break from my own kids. I had been asked to make a financial commitment right away, and that was fine because I could decide how much it would be. But then I was asked to increase the amount, which I did sort of grudgingly. I mean, the religious education was at least as good as babysitting, right? Then I was asked to help run the pledge drive. It was so much work. And in the process, I discovered how much it cost to run a church. I felt very ashamed of my minuscule pledge, and I did raise it. But it didn't stop there. There was more trouble in paradise. After I came out as pagan, I heard some folks dissing the earth-centered ritual practices that I found really meaningful. What happened to my worth and dignity? Then it got worse. I was asked to think about racism, classism, climate change, income inequality, and the prison industrial complex. Wait a minute, this was getting really uncomfortable. I didn't come to church to be challenged, or did I? I don't think my experience is unique. When you first become a member, like me, I fell in love with that community because it seemed so perfect, harmonious, fair, suffused with virtue. But of course it wasn't. I discovered that we disagreed about priorities. We struggled to find volunteers. We ran short of money. We argued about things like paint, carpet, and investing in consulting services. Words were had, and the inherent dignity and worth went right out the window. In my time with congregations since then, it's clear that we all struggle with these things and we all fall short of our agreements. the values stated in our principles, because we're all imperfect, flawed human beings with our own healthy egos, our own agendas, our secret and not so secret wounds. When we get challenged, when things don't go our way, it's pretty natural to become defensive and maybe hurt and angry. And when our comfort becomes more important than our agreements and commitments, there can be a great temptation to withdraw. My experience has been that it is exactly then, when we become challenged, discomforted, that real transformation becomes possible. But it won't happen if I just walk away. Transformation happens when we reach out in vulnerability and ask for help working things out. We need each other when we are in pain, grieving, lonely, broken, but also when we feel angry, defensive, or apathetic. And help is owed to us here, to each of us, because that's the nature of a covenant. When we reach out to one another in support, even when we're not on the same page, even when we're convinced that we are right and someone else is dead wrong, we are honoring our covenant. In joining our congregational covenants, we become each other's keepers. We agree to foster each other's spiritual worth and recognize one another's worth and dignity, spiritual growth. We agree to work together for peace, justice, and equity. We agree to support the congregation financially as best we can. Ministry with and to each other is not just a nice idea. It's explicitly stated in our principles as our responsibility. And it can be really, really hard. I certainly didn't come looking for a church to get challenged about my habits as a consumer or the effect of my diet on the planet. No one enjoys having their language corrected constantly, even if it is in the interest of equity. I find it very difficult to be calm and gracious when another person points out the error of my ways. It can be painful to be held accountable, but each challenge has changed me, has made me into a more thoughtful, more compassionate person. I had to learn where my own tender places were. When I was able to do that, and when feedback was spoken with compassion, I heard our covenant speaking. I heard it asking me, please consider how your beliefs, habits, class, language, attitudes, and priorities are affecting the person in front of you, affecting your congregation, affecting the world. I'm telling you because I care for you, and I believe together we can learn, we can be better, we can do more for the world. And what better place is there to think about doing better, being better than in church? Peter Fleck wrote this: "Isn't it true that in our churches, these communities of the Spirit, we have more resources than outside of our churches to accept each other's imperfections, to reconcile our differences, to forgive and be forgiven, to comfort and be comforted, to love and to be loved? Isn't that what church is all about? Because that's what life's all about." I want to end this morning with some words of the Reverend Victoria Safford, who wrote in the UU World in 2013. "A covenant is not a contract. It is not made and signed and sealed once and for all, sent to the attorneys for safekeeping or guarded under glass in a museum. A covenant is not a static artifact, and it is not a sworn oath, whereas. Therefore, I will do this or I'll die. So help me God. A covenant is a living, breathing aspiration made new every day. It can't be enforced by consequences, but it may be reinforced by forgiveness and by grace when we stumble, when we forget, when we mess up." In this time of change, hope, and uncertainty, as you consider the possibilities offered by the year ahead in this congregation, I hope you will call to mind the covenant you share. May we each receive the forgiveness and grace it offers us, and the will to give it back to each other and the world. May it be so.
Bonnie, that was wonderful. Before we have music, we have Marilee coming up to speak as a member of the Stewardship Committee.
So yes, I'm wearing many hats today, and this is my hat for Stewardship Committee. My name is Marilee Stover, and on the Stewardship Committee this year is, besides me, is Courtney and Bob and Lucy. Lucy's not here. Oh, she's, sorry. Sorry. Okay, so we're the committee, and our task is to help ensure the financial security of our fellowship for the coming year. And it was really good to hear Reverend Bonnie talk about the notion of covenant and the promise that we make to each other to help ourselves, to help each other, and to help our community. So our task is, as our Stewardship Committee, is to help ensure the financial security of our fellowship for the coming year. And we do this through our pledge drive. And we're in the middle of the pledge drive now. We had our piggy bank potluck this weekend. That was just a wonderful time here, bringing folks together, and we'll have more events coming up, just bringing us together, not necessarily part of the stewardship drive, but just part of just being the community that we are. In our pledge drive, everyone writes down on the pledge form, and I have copies here for you, or if you don't have one, well, there are copies at the back and copies in the fellowship hall. You write down on the pledge form what you think you can contribute for the coming year. And the coming year starts on July 1, goes through the full year. And so the board then takes these pledge forms and the amounts that we all put on those forms and determine our budget for the coming year. So it's really important that everyone fill out a form and turn it into like the beautiful piggy bank box at the back there that Courtney made, or give it to one of the stewardship members. These pledges are the lifeblood of our community, of our beloved fellowship community. We as a fellowship are responsible for everything. Every Unitarian church or fellowship is independent. Larry tells the story of going to a Catholic church as a youngster and thinking vaguely that the Pope paid for everything. But as an adult, he became a Unitarian, and during a pledge drive in Hawaii, a respected member from his profession, a Navy captain, visited him at his home and explained that there is no overarching body that gives money for the minister or the church. There is no pope. So, as an active member of the congregation, he was expected to give to support the church, and his contribution was needed. So this is our story for all of us. No one likes to talk about money. In fact, I understand that people find it harder to talk about money than to talk about sex. But we have to do it. We have to talk about money. Every Unitarian congregation must talk about it at least once a year. Our pledge provides the lifeblood for the ministries of our fellowship. And that includes a lot of things: our fellowship itself, caring for members, our freedom of worship, our freedom of thinking, all of the things that Reverend Bonnie mentioned, our religious education, our Torah shelter work, even mowing the back lawn here, our book clubs. All of this is part of our ministry. It supports who we are. But it also includes, we don't want to forget that our financial support also keeps the proverbial lights on, keeps our roof from flying away. It keeps the roots of the trees from blocking our plumbing and keeps the Xerox machine working. So we need everything. And so, yeah, we need it all. Recently, Larry and I were comparing notes on an actual pledge drive sermon that we heard at the Monterey Unitarian Church over 30 years ago, shortly after we were first married. I was surprised, this was just a conversation this weekend, I was surprised that we both remembered this sermon. I mean, it was like 34 years ago. And what I remembered was Marge Kipe, who was the minister, encouraging, encouraging all of us to give until it feels good. I remembered her saying that, give until it feels good. But Larry remembered the introduction. Reverend Kipe noted that what we generally pledge is an amount that we feel we won't miss from our budget. We give what, okay, we can give that much because, it won't hurt us in any way. But she says, this is a fallacy that denigrates and disempowers our pledge. To make a true gift that you are happy with, you must give until you feel it. Then the contribution is meaningful. It is meaningful to you. Give, she said, to the point where you feel it, and it feels good. So, I encourage all of us to give until it feels good and to be empowered supporters of our beloved community. Again, we have pledge forms for all and a piggy bank there to collect our pledge forms. And if you have already pledged, I say thank you. And I also say, of course, you are welcome to increase your pledge. So this is really important. This is a really important year for us to be the little fellowship that could. We are coming out of 2 years in the COVID wilderness and still recovering from the dreadful wildfires of our region. So it is up to us. Please pledge generously. Thank you.
I like what you say about giving until it feels good, and that it might be a little more. For the last several years, I've given 1/10 of my take-home pay. And there are times when other expenses come up that I think, well, maybe this month I won't. But then I say, no, that's what I've committed to, and I do it. And there always seems to be enough to do the other things I need to, and it does feel good. It's sometimes a little painful, but it's a commitment I've made, and I'm very happy that I've made that commitment. So thank you. I like those words that you said. This, of course, is a pledge drive for our next fiscal year, but we are currently in our current fiscal year. And I'm missing some of my papers. Did you take more papers, perhaps? This is our offering for today. That's okay. And I wanted to remind people that 50% of the cash contributions today will be going to Home and Heart. Home and Heart is this quarter, our Social Justice Committee has made this decision, and it's a wonderful organization that is a home share program that provides affordable housing solutions that benefits both renters and owners in Butte County. So home sharing is a living arrangement where two unrelated people share the homeowner's dwelling. And it's Home and Heart is a community partner with Passages. So any cash donations today, 50% of that goes to that. And then, of course, any pledges are welcome. And Chris is going to play the national anthem of Ukraine during our offering. Thank you for your gifts and your generosity to our fellowship. We're going to sing our closing hymn, which is Love Will Guide Us, and let's do what we used to do. Please stand if you're willing and able in order to sing. We'll have closing words from Reverend Bonnie.
Our real journey in life is a matter of growth, deepening, and of an ever greater surrender to the creative action of love and grace in our hearts. Never was it more necessary for us to respond to that action. I pray that we all may do so. The words of Thomas Merton. Amen.
Thank you. I believe we have coffee in the social hall today, and will be a breakout room, and Reverend Bonnie's going to stay with it for a few minutes. So those of you on Zoom, if you want to stay and have a chance to speak with her and chat, please do so. Blessed be.
Thank you.
Stop that.